On May 5th, 2019, in a Georgian-style building on New Bond Street, which is in the heart of the Mayfair district of London, this painting right here sold for over $10 million. The auctioneer worked mightily that evening to bang the gavel on 67 more lots that sold for a combined $121 million at the Sotheby Contemporary Art Evening Auction. If you rewind to March 11th, 1744, in a noisy tavern off the Strand, which is actually just 2 miles away from where the auction would eventually occur, a 22-year-old worked to close out almost 7 times that many lots. Samuel Baker was a bookseller when he shifted to a different business model by auctioning off several hundred books from the collection of Sir John Stanley. The $1,000 that Sam Baker brought in that night marked the founding of Sotheby's, which by many measures is the #1 auction house in the world. Now, being an auction house is different from being a bookseller. And while there's many types of auctions, including sealed bid auctions, timed auctions, reverse auctions, the ascending bid auction is the one that we're most familiar with, and it highlights the attributes of an auction house business model. First, an auction house has to convince someone to give the house a valuable possession. And the ability for the auction house to persuade many people to hand over something valuable creates the inventory that the auction house has available to sell. Second, an auction house has to be good at selling the inventory so that the owner of the inventory receives a return and the auction house earns their commissions. And then third, the auction house has to develop fee-based services to augment the income from the actual sales. Examples of these fee-based services include fine art storage, restoration, appraisals, private sales. If you think about the auction business model, attracting inventory, selling the inventory, and generating fee-based revenue, the house has to have certain characteristics to be successful. The house needs to be trusted, safe, and knowledgeable. People within the house have to have great personal connections with owners of the inventory. They have to know details about the potential buyers and their interests. And the house has to have great sales and merchandising expertise because ultimately, the house has to create great economic outcomes. Sam Baker, Sotheby's founder, excelled at these characteristics. He created enticing advertising campaigns, authoritative catalogs. He built deep personal relationships. He was, as one of his colleagues said, quite a joyous fellow. Baker created a business that made money selling and servicing valuable assets that the business did not own. The business would become Sotheby's, and in many ways what Baker created was a sales and service platform. If Sotheby's is an example of an early analog sales and service platform, where can we find an example of a great digital sales and service platform? Well, from its founding in 2007 by 3 guys who decided to rent out their own apartment so that they could help cover the high cost of living in San Francisco, to today with over 250 million users, $450 million in annual bookings, and present in over 150,000 cities, Airbnb has a business model that looks a lot like Sam Baker's early days of the auction house. Airbnb has to attract inventory. They have to convince owners to trust them with a high-value asset, which is why they launched the $50,000 host guarantee that actually saved the business in 2011. They have to sell that inventory successfully so that the owner gets a return and Airbnb makes money, which is why they pushed Instant Book in 2014 to counteract the most negative guest experience, which is a non-response to a booking request. And they have to create fee-based services to add to their booking revenue. such as cleaning fees, pet fees, additional guest fees, resort fees, linen fees. Those same characteristics of being trusted, knowledgeable, and safe have to exist at Airbnb. They have to make personal connections digitally, and they have to sell and merchandise their properties in a digital manner, all with the goal of creating a great economic outcome. Airbnb is an example of a great digital sales and service platform. And I know each of you right now are saying to yourselves, Alex, what does an auction house or vacation rental platform have to do with me? We see one of the secrets of building great products and great experiences is to look outside of your industry at the best example of somebody that looks somewhat like you. For example, when Apple was building their retail stores, they didn't look at Best Buy to figure out what to do. Instead, they enrolled their store managers in the Ritz-Carlton Leadership Program, which is why today a Genius Bar looks like a concierge desk. I get it. You are not an auction house, nor do you rent out vacation properties. But there are aspects of your business model similar enough to allow us to draw inspiration for our product and technology investments. You have to acquire an inventory of trusted assets called deposits. You have to sell that inventory as loans. You have to create fee-based services such as wires, foreign exchange, credit card, interchange fees. You have to make personal connections and sell and merchandise your products, all with the goal of creating great economic outcomes. And you have to be trusted, knowledgeable, and safe. And it's for these reasons that over the last few years from this stage, we've talked about Alkami as a digital sales and service platform. But before I share with you how other platforms have inspired our investment choices, I want to dig into one word that has created the most interesting customer conversations for me over the last few years, and that word is personalization. For the last few years, I've discussed Alkami's conviction that digital banking is a consumer technology innovation. And like any other consumer technology innovation, it's going to go through three phases. It's going to start as a digital twin, it's going to go through years of differentiation through user experience, and finally dominated by personalization. Think of music going from Napster to iTunes to Spotify. Personalization has won in digital music innovation, as today there are 650 million Spotify users compared to 93 million Apple Music subscribers. Likewise, digital banking started as a digital twin. It'll spend a decade or more in differentiation through user experience, but ultimately, the winners in digital banking, like any other consumer technology innovation, will be those that can use data to create personalized experiences. Now, the thing is, every customer that I meet with, they understand this journey. And every customer I meet with is seeking to deliver some type of personalization in their market. But the word personalization it's too broad to capture the conversations that I've had. And I was looking for a way to describe what our market wants with personalization. And on September 20th, 2023, I was handed the best analogy by the CEO of one of the largest credit unions in the country. I was in Albany, New York, at Broadview Federal Credit Union. And Michael Castellana described his vision of personalization as anticipatory banking. And that's when I found the words to describe personalization that really matters. So let's take a listen to Michael. Michael, I'd love it if for the audience you could introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about Broadview Blue and the growth of your institution.
Love that I'm here. Love the introduction. Michael Castellana. I am the CEO of what is now Broadview Federal Credit Union.
We're sitting in your office, and it was a lot of fun. We were kind of dreaming up things you could do if you had great data and great digital technology. And you rolled out with something that stuck with me, Michael. You said, hey, I would call it anticipatory banking. What does that mean to you, Michael, anticipatory banking?
We are in an extremely unique situation that we have 500,000 trusting members, as your entire audience does. And their members, their customers are giving them data, in some ways data that they don't even have. The customer doesn't have themselves. We have it in so many different areas. And it's my quest to be able to utilize that data to not just facilitate old school banking of being responsive to what a member wants, but to be 3 steps ahead of them, answering questions, and in some cases, taking action that the member did not even know that they needed yet. We need to be their CFO. We need to be their accounting department. We need to be their CEO in some cases to be able to make sure that they maximize their financial wherewithal. And we can do that. We have access to data that can look at spending, can look at future obligations, that can look at all of those steps in their life cycle, their financial life cycle, and anticipate their needs and address them so that it is almost seamless. But we can fundamentally change banking if we change the use of that data that we now have. And now it takes partners, certainly partners like you, to be able to make that real.
Anticipatory banking. Thank you, Michael. That is good. And your words describe what our customers tell me that personalization should mean for our industry. At Alkami, we need to weave anticipatory banking into a digital sales and service platform that excels at helping you attract deposits, sell loans, and offer fee-based products that your account holders will appreciate. So how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to spend money. Since our IPO, we spent almost $300 million on R&D. And if history repeats itself, we'll spend almost another $100 million this year so that you have the technology that you need to compete against mega banks and fintechs, so that you have a digital offering that you can be proud of, that attracts and retains the next generation, so that you can surprise and delight your account holders by anticipating their needs, so that you can have the digital sales and service platform that powers your growth. And in spending that money, we think about our investments in terms of application functionality and platform capability. So let's come back to what we can learn from both an analog and a digital sales and service platform. What product principles can we learn from Sotheby's and Airbnb? Well, if you study the history of both companies, you'll find that they focused on a small number of priorities in terms of what they were building. First, they made it easy to become a customer. I mean, Sotheby's even has online tutorials for people that are new to auctions. They create different types of products for different markets. Sotheby's and Airbnb serve individuals and companies with different offerings. They really prioritize creating a user experience, all the way down to Airbnb implemented a professional photography program where freelance photographers were hired to take high-quality photos of hosts' home. And then finally, they realized that personalized relationships create trust. Airbnb created techniques to encourage hosts and guests to share just the right amount of information with each other so that they're not too creepy. In terms of the platform itself, what can we learn from the decisions and actions that Airbnb made to build out such a large digital infrastructure? First, they continuously take advantage of new innovation in cloud technologies. They demonstrate a commitment to unified APIs which drive ease of use and speed. And they prioritize uptime and availability because they understand that that means money to the hosts. And then finally, they invest in advanced data and analytics capabilities. For example, they determined that 300 listings with 100 reviewed listings was the magic number to see growth take off in a market. Informed by those lessons, our product investments are going to go into 4 areas. The first is onboarding and account opening integrated into the digital banking experience. Second, it's to build great retail and commercial application functionality so you can serve your market. Third is continue to invest in user experience by broadening out the user journeys that we look at and giving you more control over the real estate. And fourth is personalization, helping you use your data more effectively. How about the platform? Our platform investments are going to also go into 4 areas. Scalability so you can grow, extensibility so you can differentiate, reliability so you're always on, and data capability so that you have insights. The payoff from these investments creates a digital and sales and service platform with digital banking that's intuitive and engages your users, with data and marketing that mines core and digital banking information to improve segmentation and targeting and relevancy, and omni-channel onboarding and account opening to grow your account holder base and the number of products per account holder. Together, what we're going to be able to do is deliver some really great experiences that surprise and delight your account holders. For example, imagine a financial institution could promote a business deposit account to a retail account holder with a history of business transactions, onboard that new deposit account in minutes, and then guide that account holder back into digital banking for the new features and functionality associated with that account. But look, will technology alone be enough to help Alkami help you compete against mega banks and win? I don't think so. And the hundreds of hours that I've spent with customers reinforces in me the notion that how we do things is more important than what we do. Michael Castellan and I spent a couple hours together that morning in Albany. And in addition to anticipatory banking, we spent a lot of time talking about the values of Broadview and the investments they make into their people and their community. And then Michael dug deep into who Alkami is and what we believe. And the result of that conversation was one of the more surprising moments in my career. Let's watch.
You gave me something that day that I carry with me. I'm actually in DC right now. My flight got canceled last night, and you gave me this challenge coin, and on the back it says, blessed, grateful, humble, changing the world one life at a time. What does this mean? This meant a lot to me, and I like I said, I carry it with me. So tell me about this and where it came from.
I give those to people who are doing what it says on that coin. And I really felt after our discussion and looking in your eyes and your passion for, yes, the business is the business, and we can all understand that, but you had a passion to change lives. And those are the people that I give these coins to, because I know it's going to take many more people, many more institutions. This has nothing to do with our brand. It has nothing to do with financial services. To change the world, we all need to work together to do that.
Michael, I'm grateful. We do believe at Alkami that it's not just about getting it done, but it's about doing it right. And doing it right is all about supporting both your folks, your customers, but also the communities that we participate in.
Thanks, Michael. I appreciate that. In that video, you heard me say that at Alkami, we believe it's not just about getting it done, but it's about doing it right. And at Alkami, doing it right is living our values. You can see the Alkami values here on the screen, but I'm not going to spend time defining each value. Instead, I want to share with you where these values came from, because it's not something that we just made up. A few years ago, I asked my team to come to a meeting with a list of people that we consider to be some of the best people at Alkami, that we consider what we want to be as a company. The people that if everybody at Alkami was like them, we would work at the company that we wanted to work at for the rest of our careers. I went around the room and I asked for one name at a time, and I wrote it on the whiteboard, noting when there was a name that received more than one response. At the end of the exercise, there were about 10 names on the board that had 4 more marks by them. Like, these people were Alkami. And then we began to dissect what we knew about these folks, using the truism in life that your experiences create your beliefs create your actions, and your actions create your results. So we actually went backwards. We started with what we had seen these people do that caused us to think they're the best of alchemy. Once we had that list, we asked ourselves, okay, what must they believe? What must they value for them to act the way that we saw them act? The beliefs that drove the actions that caused us to say that these folks are the best of alchemy, that's what you see on the screen. That's what we hope to be every day. And I would just ask you as a community to hold us accountable to these values. We're going to have great days where we excel at these. We're going to have some days where maybe we don't. But over the whole long arc of our relationship, I want to know if we're being the company that we want to be. I want to know if we're doing it right, not just getting it done. In closing, we want to help you create anticipatory banking. We want to help you deliver a great digital sales and service platform. And we want to be a company that you want to do business with and that you count on as a partner in the story that you're writing for your financial institution. And on behalf of more than 1,000 alchemists, I just want to say thank you for being part of the Alkami community.